Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a very special bonus episode of the Epic Film Guys podcast. I'm Justin.
I'm Jeremy.
And we're thrilled today to have on executive producer of In Search of the Last Action Heroes, In Search of Tomorrow, and the In Search of Darkness horror documentary series, Robin Block. Robin, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's a real privilege to be on today to talk about what we're up to and how we got here.
Fantastic. Well, we're so glad to have you. We're going to be talking about primarily something that our listeners know is a common subject that comes up on almost every single episode of the show. Jeremy,
why is that, Justin?
I was going to throw it to you because this is something that comes out of your mouth on a weekly basis. It's a little movie that an older director from back in the day, you might not have heard of him, called John Carpenter directed. It's called The Thing.
The Thing, man. I think I've heard of this movie. Been meaning to check it out. No, our listeners know that this movie is damn near a religious experience for me. It's one of my favorite films ever made. It's a film that I revisit time and time again. I reference it all the time. In fact, I have tons of screenshots on my phone that I use as emojis, like tons of like Blair staring. So, you know, in my group chats, I throw them out there. I mean, this movie means everything to me. So, you know, we're recording this episode pretty early in the morning. We usually record our podcast at night, and that's because Robin's in the UK. But listen, I will wake up and record a podcast any day of the week early as fuck in the morning if it's regarding The Thing. So me and Robin connected, and Robin is making a new documentary, and he's a very well-known documentary filmmaker. Has been on our radar for a long time. Both Justin and I have the In Search of Darkness documentaries. I've got the poster hanging up in my garage, and I was well aware of Robin before I found out about this new project that's going on, and this project is one that it excites me greatly because it's something that I'm passionate about, and it's The Thing. So Robin, like, tell us exactly what this next film that you're going into is all about.
So thank you for the lovely introduction, and as you mentioned, we're best known, my company Creative VC is best known for our In Search of Darkness 80s horror trilogy, which horror fans have really embraced, and it's been a sort of massive success. We're still continuing with that franchise, that series. We're moving now from the 80s to the 90s. But back in 2022, we set up a new format to look at single IPs, like single movies. And we called this expanded film. So the first feature documentary using this new format is called Aliens Expanded. That was crowdfunded back in September 2022 and is getting released around April, May this year. And I'm really, really happy with it. We sent a rough cut out of that film to backers over Christmas. It's had like one of the highest ratings for any of our projects. And now I'm looking for the next movie to look at using the lens of this expanded format. And as a kind of business, the majority of our audience are horror fans. It's where we've had our biggest success. So we've made a strategic decision to double down on horror, and The Thing is going to be the next documentary we develop. So the title is The Thing Expanded, and the reason we've chosen The Thing, John Carpenter's 1982 classic, is for a number of reasons. Number one, in order for it to really qualify for an expanded kind of format, for us to sort of want to consider it as a topic and a deep dive into, the film itself needs to be complex enough. It needs to be dense enough and have enough to talk about it. It needs to have a fandom attached to it that's ravenous with fan theories and ideas and projection. And finally, it needs to be pretty much a perfect movie. And The Thing is pretty much a perfect movie. We're very careful about calling things the best movie ever or the best horror movie ever, but The Thing is in that conversation as the best horror movie ever, like no doubt about it. And so with Aliens Expanded, which is coming out in a few months, when we started working on that, we had a new idea. And so we went out to the fandom of Aliens, to the people that run all the Facebook groups, the podcasts, and we chatted with them first and said, look, we're making this project. We'd love for you to be involved in this. And then we presented this synopsis of this was the roadmap for this documentary. This is the kind of outline. This is the vision we have for Aliens Expanded. And we took that out to thousands of Aliens fans and had it peer reviewed. It evolved based on that feedback. And then we went into our initial crowdfunding campaign, which was a huge success. So that project is coming to its end now with the release happening in the next few months. So I'm getting ahead of the next one that we want to do, which is The Thing. And I think what we've done different, and my reason for being on this call today, is because our synopsis for this project is embryonic. Our mission is to go out to super fans of The Thing and see if we can get them engaged. We've got a very simple survey. We want people to project what they want to see onto this documentary, and we want to do it super early. So we're about at least 6 months out before we even really start, marketing and moving into a pre-sale. And my job, and it's so much fun at the beginning, is to start going out and just talking to leaders within the fandom, people that run the Facebook groups, Instagrams, the podcasts, and start chatting to them. So I'm doing a little tour of kind of conversations with super fans where nothing's off the table.
Sure.
And I haven't done it like this. So this will either be a great idea or like the worst thing I could possibly do. I'm hoping it's a great idea. And that's where we are. And finally, the whole kind of concept, the visual concept of The Thing Expanded is we imagine you're sitting in front of your edit suite now and you're looking at The Thing on your edit suite and it's one movie. Imagine that, but it's in 3 dimensions. It's just floating the whole movie. And you've got a virtual camera and you're flying into scenes, going into them, deconstructing them, flying out, going into character motivations, profiles, the expanded universe. And the way we want to do it is we want to start the documentary off at the beginning of The Thing and work our way through that movie until the end. And so that's really exciting. I think last weekend I went to see the movie in London, played at the British Film Institute. And it was a packed crowd on a Saturday night of a 40-year-old movie. And it still bangs. It still works. It still leaves you with lots of thoughts at the end.
Sure.
Kind of, it lingers, and that's why it's perfect for this format.
Yeah, I mean, one of my best friends, Aaron, he lives in Georgia, and they actually screened it in 35 millimeter at a theater by his house last night. And he texted me. He said it's sold out. Every single seat in the house is sold out. And again, like you just said, Robin, this is a movie that came out 40 years ago that was so underappreciated and undervalued when it came out. And this is one of those weird things that it has gotten more popular and more famous as time has gone on. And I've seen Kurt Russell in person. I've talked with him many times, and I've heard him specifically talk about this movie. And he said it took 25 years for people to start catching on about how good and how perfect this movie is. And we had a call last week, you and I, Robin, where kind of bouncing ideas around and things like that. And I moderate a group on Facebook. It's the Thing 1982 fan group that has over 30,000 members in it. And let me tell you that the fan base for this movie is ravenous. And I'm sure there are bigger groups out there on Facebook for different films, but the Thing 1982 fan group, it's post after post after post. Nothing like you said earlier is fan theories. Oh, well, you could see this character's breath in this scene, but not this one. I think that means that, they're the thing. And, that wasn't liquor that they drank at the end. It was gasoline. And that's how McCready knew, and XYZ. Like, I mean, the fan theories are tremendous. So, that's what excited me about your project, is that it's not necessarily a making of documentary. It's a fully immersive deconstruction of the film and why it still works and fascinates people 40 years later.
Yeah, I mean, it's there are great making ofs out there. Some great interviews. We've all seen them. They're free on YouTube if you haven't seen them. But I think that what we're trying to accomplish is to create something that is a manifestation of your fandom of this movie. So our audience is you. We're not trying to tell you stuff you already know. We want to expand your knowledge and understanding and appreciation of this movie. Like, we know we know that we win if you watch this documentary and the first thing you do is watch The Thing again, and it's like the first time you've watched it. It's like watching something and understanding it in a completely different way. And I think what we're trying to accomplish is to extract more and more value out of something that you love. One of the questions we've been asking a lot of people is, how many times have you watched a thing? And like, it's an incalculable amount of times.
Yeah.
People watch it every year. For like 25 years, people have watched it every year. And when your relationship with something, a piece of art, a film, a song, when you understand it in a different way, it's like it becomes new to you. And I think that's really powerful. I think that's, with the expanded format, that is what we are absolutely trying to accomplish. And we want to keep it really personal. The Thing has so much to it, so much density, so much to talk about, that we can have a real field day. And it's interesting because we've already had like hundreds of people fill out the survey. I haven't even emailed. Like, we have about 85,000 backers at Creative VC in total across our projects. We haven't even emailed our backers yet because we've got other projects coming out. We don't want to sort of jump the gun with this one. So we're just doing it very organically. Within about a week of me setting up the social profiles, which are Thing Expanded, people are jumping on the surveys, and already we're starting to see a pattern in the kind of responses, what people want to see. And so my goal is to get as many fans to kind of contribute to that survey. It's free to sign up. You can tell us anything you want and we'll listen. And what I'm looking for is patterns. So how can I understand what this audience wants, and how can I over deliver? And that's a challenge, but it's also like a real passion project. The last sort of 5 years of Creative VC have been amazing. Like, just I pinch myself moments. But this year, I was saying to my team at the beginning, I just want to work on projects that I really deeply care about, because you have the most fun. I think The Thing Expanded will end up being like a real manifestation of that fandom, because I'm a fan of the movie. I understand why it has magic to it. We want to look into that magic. We want to understand why. Jeremy gave me a tour of his like garage and basement,
man cave.
His personal universe, right? And I was it's incredible, but also it's like that level of devotion is not uncommon with when you're looking at, like, I don't know, like the Mona Lisa. In 1,000 years from now, people will still talk about The Thing. And I think that warrants further investigation.
Absolutely. And what's super fun about being a fan and loving a movie as much as I love The Thing is, again, it's watching it as many times as possible, but discovering new things, coming up with new ideas about it. I just another film is I just went back and rewatched A Nightmare on Elm Street for the 500 millionth time last week, and I noticed something that I never noticed before.
What did you
Stuff
notice?
like that is thrilling. So when Rod and Tina are in bed after they make the boom booms, and Tina's like, no more nightmares, and Rod says, yeah, no more nightmares. And there's a quick shot of him rolling over in the bed, and I never noticed that the sheet that's under the blanket is the red and green stripes. I don't know how I've never noticed that, but I had never noticed that when he turned over very quickly, the sheet under the blanket is the same pattern as Freddy's sweater, and I was like, "Holy fuck, I've never noticed that." And in fact, that's how me and Justin met, was through shared fandom of horror. We both met at a screening of A Nightmare on Elm Street at Alamo Drafthouse, and I remember specifically when that night that I met Justin, I remember watching the movie on the big screen and noticing that when Tina has the nightmare and she walks out of her kitchen to go to that back alley, in the window is an Ernie from like Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street cookie jar in the window. And I had never noticed until that screening that, Ernie's sweaters has always been red. And uh in the nightmare sequence, Ernie, the cookie jar, the sweater is red and green like Freddy's. And I had never noticed that before. And there's things like that within the thing that me seeing it on the big screen, like I'm like, holy fuck, I've never noticed that before. And so it's always thrilling, deep diving into these things, which is why I'm gonna be honest with you, Rob, we typically don't bring on a lot of documentary filmmakers or people. We typically don't do interview status. We've done it very few times, but this was something that I'm so passionate about, and Justin loves the thing as well, that I was like, this is something that I really think that we should get behind.
Really grateful, and you have to respect the fandom. Our tagline at Creative EC is fandom with purpose. So that energy that you have, that appreciation of that film, we want to take that energy and turn it into something that you will treasure. There's a reason why our Blu-rays go on eBay rarely, but when they do, they go for hundreds of dollars.
Every time I see them on there, they're extremely expensive.
Yeah, like it's because they're personal. Because everyone that's been part of a project has a name in it. It's an experience. When we do our projects now, and this is so true of The Thing Expanded, is it's not we do a pre-sale, see you in a year. Like, we're going to spend a year having lots of online activities, Q&As, cast Q&As, expert Q&As. So there's this whole journey that is going to happen that's parallel to our production life cycle. So it's going to be for a year. It's going to be like super immersive. And we've just finished doing that. Well, we've still got a couple of months to go with Aliens Expanded, where we've had tons of the cast come in. We've had the hosts from some of the big podcasts come in and discuss like tangential elements of the movie. And it's added like another 16 hours of entertainment to a film that will probably be about 4 hours long anyway, right? For hardcore kind of devotees of the movie. And so I see it almost as an interactive documentary. And with The Thing, there's even more interactive elements that we want to bring in, because I think that if you look at the kind of numbers that are coming back, it's people at the moment, like 85% men who are 36 years old and over, right? There is it's clear from the data that we're seeing that for a certain generation, this is a kind of milestone movie, and and that's really interesting. So our projects, we create them for 1,000 people. We think about kind of product market fit. We think about how can we make something that's really going to speak to this audience, not a broadcast audience, not Netflix, not when you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of potential. I'm talking about like actually speaks to a very narrow group of viewers. That's our intent with The Thing Expanded. And I'm doing a bit of a tour at the moment, having lots of conversations. People have been emailing me, finding out about the project. Like, in my job, my mission is to tap into the signal, right? What are people really going to respond to? I remember when I was doing the first In Search of Darkness, like it was wild. Like all sorts of really important people in horror were emailing me, and I was just starting out. And it's like that again. Like I can see that I'm tapping into it. So I want to have as many conversations. I want to have as much dialogue with the Thing fandom as possible, because together, you know, the more information we have, the better we can create something which really speaks to those fans.
Sure. And I tell you what, two people that are going to help you immensely through conversations with them is Peter Abbott. He is
brilliant.
a historian.
Fellow
for the
Brit.
Thing.
Fellow Brit. There we go.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then you know, my other good friend John Campbell Hammond, who his grandfather wrote Who Goes There, the story that the Thing is based on. And you know, the Thing is also, you know, he calls himself, you know, he does a lot of hashtag Thing bloodline, because the Thing literally is in his family. And you know, having, you know, conversations with him, and the insight that you're going to get from, you know, a familial aspect is, I think, is going to be amazing for your.
I had a great
documentary.
conversation with Peter and John, and you know, I feel very supported. You know, ultimately, you know, I want to have as much fun on this project, you know, and learn as well. And we've got a kind of format and an idea and a capability on how to deliver this. And we just want the whole thing to be enhanced by the fandom. And it's quite, I've said this before, I think I might have said it to you when we first spoke, but ideas are at their most fragile when they're embryonic. So normally we would have, when we test out an idea, we have a landing page, we have a synopsis, there's like a video of us talking about it before we send it out. We've done none of that. This is way before we get to that stage. This is something we want to do. Are there people out there that want to be part of it, that want to kind of feed into it at the moment? And so our kind of production schedule for this year is we've got a couple of big releases happening in the first part, and I've got this 3-month window in the middle of 2024, so May, June, July, where I can absolutely focus on the Thing, and July being like when we'll do the pre-sale and all of that kind of stuff. And so we're basically 6 months. So we're having this conversation maybe like week 2 into Creative EC deciding that we are actually going to do this, and we're going to be naked, not literally, but we're going to be naked and say, hey guys, we want to do this. What do you think? No, we haven't got anything to show you apart from this is the idea of what we want to do. And, you know, I'm so excited about Aliens Expanded. And I feel like the Thing can just be an iteration. Like what we've, for me, Aliens Expanded is like one of the best executed projects we've ever delivered. And the fans have been incredible. The backers have been so supportive. Everything's run like clockwork with this. And I want the Thing Expanded to go beyond what we've done there. I want to do some new stuff with this. When we were talking, Jeremy, I showed you a kind of a visual, which I don't think it's been released, which was of the, you know, that whole 3D thing of how the movie's in 3D and like in this 3D environment, we're kind of moving into it. I'm happy to sort of share that. I don't know if this is an audio podcast or if it's a visual one or however you want to do it.
It's audio, but I'm sure Justin would love to see it too.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, when we do these video versions of the recording, sometimes I will put them on YouTube in this format. So we could totally put this version on YouTube.
So I'll show you.
Glad I put pants on then.
Yeah. I just want to say for the record, we're all fully dressed. So I'll share with you. I mean, I think I can share my screen. Here we go. I've got share screen here. I'll show you, and you can see this is obviously the aesthetic is Aliens, because this is motion graphics for the Aliens project. We're coming towards the end of post-production on this, but what we want to replicate, obviously not in space but in a different environment, is the Thing in the complete movie, like segmented into its scenes, and I'll give you a kind of idea of how that's going to be. So what we want to be able to do is kind of zoom into various parts of the film, come in, go into it, and then start to deconstruct elements of it. and like all the pivotal scenes through the movie, we want that to be the kind of chronology of how we go in. So hopefully that gives you really a little insight.
Yeah, that was really cool.
I love that concept. That's very interactive, and I think visually also really interesting, rather than just a normal formatted documentary. I mean, what I've seen of what you guys have done already is changing the game anyways in terms of what you bring creatively to.
We love this stuff. We love it, and it's when you're dealing with fandoms that are so passionate, it's like religion. It really is, right? You have to be really respectful. You have to treat the work. Yeah, in Search of Darkness, we cover some films that people think aren't very good, but we can't treat them poorly. We have to elevate them. We have to say this is good because of these things, right? Because this audience really appreciates this movie for whatever reason.
Right. Yeah.
And I want to carry on the In Search of Darkness documentary. So we have covered 90s, noughties, 70s. We want to cover all areas of horror with that series. But there's nothing like doing a very deep dive into something and exploring. It's not just the chronology of the film. It's like the offshoots, the tangents, the fan theories, deconstructing frames, going, what's happening in this bit of frame? There's a door moving somewhere. Why is that? Bringing together some of the remaining cast, bringing together the greatest group of experts on this movie in history, bringing together some of the people that it's inspired, Quentin Tarantino and other people that have taken elements from this and used it in their own work, and almost like have a massive party, and make something which, if you sit down and watch it, the first thing you're going to want to do is watch the thing again. And that's how we know we've won.
Absolutely. So is there a because we spoke before, I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it. Is there a white whale that you're hoping to get participation?
There is a white whale, right? And I probably should shut up about this, because if we don't do it, I'm going to look silly. But it's an intent. It's something we want to happen. So I want to talk about Rob Bottin for a second. So Jeremy, from what I understand, you run the In Search of Rob Bottin fan group as well, or you're involved in that somehow.
I'm in it. I'm definitely in it. Man,
I was looking at it today. They're putting up all these exclusive. If you're watching it or listening to this, you need to subscribe to the In Search of Rob Bottin fan group, because it's tons of really interesting material that I haven't found anywhere else.
Sure. He's such a fascinating guy, because he came in very young and did some of the most innovative, most brilliant work, arguably the greatest special effects work ever put on film, which is The Thing, of course.
It still still works.
Oh my God, it's still amazing. And the things that people were repulsed and disgusted by in 1982, he's so celebrated now for that stuff that still holds up all of these years later. And he's such a fascinating guy, because like I said, he got in really young. He did some amazing work. And then what's interesting is he decided to get out of Hollywood. And but his wife is still very much a prominent player in Hollywood, and she's worked on Game of Thrones, and he did a little bit of work on Game of Thrones, I think, as helping his wife out. But it's interesting, because it seems like he's so done with Hollywood that when she shows up to red carpet events in LA and he lives out there, he doesn't go with her.
No,
and this adds to the mistake.
So it's sort of, you have to respect people's desire for privacy. Sure. He could go on every horror podcast ever done if he wanted to, because he's kind of like horror royalty, right?
100%.
And it's amplified because he's you can't get hold of him. So when I talk about him being the white whale, we will do everything we can to secure his involvement in the project, with the going in, knowing we might not succeed, and that's okay, right?
Yeah.
With Aliens Expanded, we wanted to get James Cameron and Sigourney Weaver. We couldn't. It's one of those things. But the film itself it's almost, they've done so many interviews. There's nothing more they can say,
Right.
Sure.
So it's sort of the format. It doesn't, require those. I mean, it's always great for optics if they're involved, but the film hasn't suffered for their lack of involvement. It's still,
Sure.
I'm still very excited about it. But there's something about Rob Bottin where I feel that people should get their flowers, while they're still here. He's still here. I'm sure he's aware. I presume he's aware of the reverence that fans hold him. We mention his name in hushed tones. John Carpenter is more accessible. He does do interviews occasionally. We were fortunate enough to feature John Carpenter in Search of Darkness. And I think he's just turned 76. It's sort of I would love it. I think that to speak to Rob now, 40 years on from this kind of seminal work, just to not even just to go back to memories he had, but just for him to sort of understand and acknowledge what he's accomplished. I think the fans would really appreciate that the opportunity for them to tell him, what, like, you have been, you've changed all of our lives in a little way.
Absolutely.
And
seeing
also,
the movie,
I dare say, change the face of cinema as well.
True, and you can use all these things. I mean, I went to see it on Saturday in London. There was people in the audience that had never seen it before, and they were the script, like, it was, you could see it, and I was like, oh my god, this is making me love it even more. Like, it still has that effect. And but we'll see. That's an intent. We will try our best. We're fortunate we've got resource. We can make it. We can make it worthwhile. We have no idea how to reach him, and also he might just not want to be reached, which is, you've got to respect that.
I'll talk to you offline about a couple things that might help with that. I mean, he's so fascinating because I'm an autograph collector as well, and a Rob Bottin autograph is near impossible, man. It's like finding an original page of the Bible. It's because it
love
is
that analogy.
Yeah.
And the few times that I have seen them, it's very interesting because Rob always, in the autographs that I've seen that he signed, always makes it a point to write, I don't usually do this, but here for you, pal. Like, he always makes it a point to be like, I don't sign autographs, but you asked me. And it seems like he, from what I can see from the autographs that he has signed, it's always been for almost friends, someone within his circle that he's done that for. So it's just, it adds a certain mystique and mystery behind him, which I think is amazing. And not to wax your own car, or not for me to wax your car, Robin, but I think if anybody can get Rob Bottin, it's you guys. I really do.
I hope so. I mean, look, it's something we want to do. If he declines, we just have to accept. We get declined all the time for interviews. It's one of those things. People sometimes just don't want to have moved on. Sure. They've moved on, and it's very different. It's like John Carpenter. He's known for not being the most forthcoming in interviews because he's not trying to be a pop star. He's a director. Doesn't care. Right. And you have to, I mean, it makes you admire them a bit more in a weird kind of way. But my angle with this is I want everything that you guys and girls nerd out about to do with this film, we want to cover. And we want to do it in a very premium way. This isn't. I'm not a huge fan of fan documentaries because I feel that the ones I've seen, although they mean well, lack a bit of substance and certainly production value. I want to have an amazing cast for this project of huge names. I want to have absolutely people that represent the fandom, but they're the top of the food chain fandom, the ones that run the podcasts, run the groups, the ones that are kind of dedicated their lives to it. And I think most of all, I want the production value to feel like, God, we're treating this with reverence. I want this film that we're making to be relevant in 100 years from now.
Absolutely.
And what the feedback we've had from Aliens Expanded, from the rough cut, because we sent out a 5-hour rough cut, has been like, this is the definitive documentary. And there's already some amazing documentaries about aliens, right? But that's from 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah, the special features on like the BluBrry that you would get the old archival interviews and stuff.
And we're not trying to compete with that. We're trying to look at it with new eyes. And so I mean, my big message to everyone is just, you know, say hi, follow us, be part of this journey, this embryonic journey. Where I'd like to be is in maybe 3 months from now, actually go back to all of you with a synopsis, with a 4-page synopsis about this is the thing expanded, this is what we're going to cover, this is what's going to happen. And we want that to have been formed by all the information we're getting from the fandom at the moment, because we are starting to see patterns. And then see what you say and amend it based on the feedback to that. So there's certainly a dialogue beginning now with the fandom. I think I've got 12 podcast interviews just like this, just with fans of the movie, just to kind of nerd out about it and see if I can get people interested. They seem interested. I've never done a project like this. I can't predict the future, but the vibe right now is that there's like sometimes things happen when they're ready to happen. I think this movie deserves a film to look at it again.
I totally agree. I have to say, what I love so much about what you guys have done with the In Search of series is you put a spotlight on the fandom. And in a world where some fandom could be considered it's extremely entitled, I think what you're doing is special in the sense that you're not only involving them, you're bringing them in and getting the feedback from them. And that's an important part of what do you want to see. In the case of, you know, seeing older documentaries or old interviews and stuff, like you're putting a different viewpoint on this subject that we, you know, if you're a hardcore fan, it's hard sometimes to bring out new things that we haven't already seen or heard. And with the material that I've seen that you guys have produced, it's like, whoa, holy shit, like they've done it. And I think with The Thing, it is the perfect project to open it up in a different way and in a modern sense as well.
That's the greatest. Sorry, the greatest behind the scenes look that we have at The Thing is just it's one thing, and it's Terror Takes Shape, which was a special feature, which is, like you mentioned earlier, Robin, it's in full on YouTube. It's fantastic, and what excites me about The Thing Expanded is that it's not just, hey, here's, you know, the making of the thing. Well, we've got that. This is a dissection. This is what made and makes this movie so beloved. And I'm, again, that's what got me super hyped.
In my perspective as well, it makes it worth doing too, because you're bringing something new to the table.
It's got to, you know, it's got to stand on its own legs. It's got to be transformative. You know, I'm sure we'll be borrowing elements from some of those old interviews. I'm looking at the Rob Bettine stuff on the Facebook group In Search of Rob Bettine. I'm like, yeah, we'll be adding a clip of that somewhere. And you know, we have to be transformative. We have to create something which is of value in of itself, right? And the way we do that is we have to work hand in hand with the fandom. You get a sense of stuff, right? And like, you know, a couple of weeks into this, all I've had is great people reach out, right? And it's like this unsaid bond. It's weird, right? It's like this unsaid bond between us that we all love this movie. I could see you walking down the street, right? And you're wearing The Thing. I'm wearing my Last Exit. I can't see if there's audio, but I'm kind of representing here. But you know, you see someone wearing The Thing t-shirt, automatically, you know, you and him are going to be cool.
Yep.
You know, like it brings people together, and it speaks to the 12-year-old in us, you know, that just loves those things. But as you get older, like I love watching old movies. And Jeremy, when we spoke last week, I said this to you, and I said that I'm going to do a terrible job of this metaphor, but it's like the same man doesn't step in the same stream twice, right? Because the stream's different and the man's different. And I think it's like watching old movies that you really love. When you watch them when you're 12, they have a completely different impact on you to when you're 46. I'm 46. I watched The Thing when I was younger than 12, and it had a visceral effect on me. I watched it last weekend at the age of 46, and I got even more value out of it because I understand the world differently as an adult than I did as a child. And great movies, one of the things that is a unifying factor amongst perfect movies is that they are still perfect depending on how old you are. Like, I want to revisit The Thing when I'm 70, hopefully when I'm 90. And it'll be a different movie to now when I'm 46. I'll understand it in a different way. And I think one of the things about The Thing is it has this authenticity. It has this, it feels real. Nothing feels like a performance. It has this kind of truth to the environment, the sets, the location. You're in the cinema, it's getting cold. Like not many movies carry that off. And that's, sometimes magic in films, you can't manufacture it. You have to get a bit lucky with everything. All the different, the performances, the actors, the direction, the budget, like the Rob Bottin, like the everyone who worked on it. It's such a collaboration that you can't repeat it. And sometimes magic happens, and magic has happened. And I feel like it's a great opportunity to look back into that. What is the magic happening?
Sure. Well, it's real quick. You mentioned that if another Thing fan was walking down the street with a Thing shirt, I have a story that's kind of like that. So I used to manage a store right outside of Washington, D.C., and this guy came in and he had on a shirt that said Outpost 31, right? And that's all it said on it. And it had the little emblem on it. There was no other references to the Thing. There was no monsters. There was nothing. It was similar to the shirt that you have on right now, Robin. And so the guy was walking around and I said, I love your shirt, man. The Thing, it's one of my all-time favorite movies. And he goes, I have owned this shirt for 9 years and no one has ever known what it was. And he was so stoked that I knew what his shirt was. And then we sat there and talked for 15 minutes about our favorite parts of the movie, how we discovered the movie, different things that we've collected from the movie. And it was instantaneous bond. And he was super stoked because he's like, man, nobody has ever known what the fuck this shirt is. So he was just stoked that I knew what it was. So that stuff is real, and it happens. And when you love a film as much as I or you guys love The Thing, there's always going to be that commonality, right? It could be a complete stranger, but you're not strangers because you have a shared love of something.
It's so true.
I love that so much.
Yeah, and it's kind of beautiful, especially for men in your 40s, to sort of almost have a beacon and be like, oh yeah, I'm down as well. I get it as well. Right? I mean, when you were giving me the tour of your man cave, right? Like, Jeremy, I was so impressed, but you're not alone. There's so many people that have that where this genre of film and the characters and the films, they kind of seep into your identity, that it's amazing. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, this happens to me all the time. I had to interject because I work for an Alamo Draft House. I screen horror movies once a month. I've been doing it for almost 8 years now. And much to like what you were saying earlier, with people experiencing these older movies for the first time, I get to see that and witness that every single month. And on top of that, when you see people socializing with one another after the movie, and whether it be Killer Clowns from Outer Space or Halloween, or you enter the name of the movie in there, when they walk by each other, there is this almost automatic friendship or kinship with one another where there's no animosity. It's just an instant, like, almost love that surrounds the group of people. It's absolutely love that.
It's tribal.
Yeah, exactly.
I love watching horror movies. I don't often watch old horror movies at home, but I will make a beeline to screenings in London just to see it in a shared environment. Horror's just one of those genres that does kind of, it's weird, it's counterintuitive, but it kind of brings people together. It feels like you should be part of a collective. And when we did In Search of Darkness, we interviewed, I think it was In Search of Darkness 2, we interviewed Tom Savini, who was everything you can imagine he was. He was amazing. But he has this quote which has been turned into a meme. And and what he says is, an old movie isn't old if you haven't seen it before.
I love that quote. I just saw him posted to his Instagram not that long ago, and that speaks for itself, and it's so very true.
Yeah, and I just with the thing expanded, I'm not, we've had projects, perform amazingly, been way more success than we ever dreamt of, and I'm so grateful for that. But with the thing expanded, that isn't my focus. My focus is I want to bring together the best fans of this film over the next 6 months, and let's see if we can make something that we all really value. That is, that kind of represents what this film means to us. And the documentary, calling it a documentary, although that's what it is, doesn't do it justice. I've been trying to find words to describe it. I've been calling it an interactive documentary, and no one knows what that means. But what I mean by that is I want this to be a personal journey for everybody that gets involved, where they can nerd out about this for a year while we're in production. And at the end, they've got something which has got their name in it. This stuff will never go on eBay. This will be handed down the generations. You talked about the bloodline, that's, and I sound like I'm joking, but actually I'm being very serious. That's how important this is. And I want to thank you so much. This has been a blast.
Yeah, same.
I could do this all day long.
Hell yeah.
And we haven't really even talked about the movie, but there's so much. You guys talk about it on your podcast anyway, but I'm just the vibe is bang on, and I'm seeing it across the board. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Absolutely.
Well, absolutely an honor to have you on the show, and we would love to do a follow-up, like you said earlier on.
I've got a pitch for you. So I was just chatting to my team this morning, and I said, look, because they've got a schedule of watch parties, because we're doing 90s horror at the moment. I'm like, is there somewhere over the next few months we can fit in a watch party for The Thing? And what I want to do is I want to bring a whole bunch of experts to that watch party, get everyone synced up, and then do it live. So get everyone to watch The Thing, but with all of you guys there talking about it in real time as the film's going in. And I thought that could be a super fun thing to do.
That sounds really exciting.
I'm The Thing. I'm there anytime. So you just let me know, and I'm excited to be, a part of this journey with you and help in any way that
you've been amazing. Peter, John, Justin as well. Lovely to meet you today. This is
you as well.
All of these conversations are helping inform what we're doing, right? And honestly, with stuff like this, you just start to get a vibe, and you want to build that energy, that momentum, and keep it going. And certainly today, this has just put me on a high.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, where can our audience find everything for The Thing Expanded?
Okay, so right now we have the social groups. They've only been set up for about a week or so, and it's on Twitter or X or whatever it's called, Twitter X, Facebook and Instagram. And the handle is @ThingExpanded. And if you go there, in the link in the bio, there is the survey. The survey is really simple at the moment. We just want to understand what it is that you would want to see in something like this. And we're listening to every response. As of right now, this recording, and we haven't really done any real promo with this. If I take a look at the survey and the kind of the amount of responses we're getting, as of today, we've had 361 responses, which is a lot considering we've been out for a week and we haven't even emailed our audience. So, what would be great is by the time we actually do a pre-sale in, it'll be July this year, we have 4,000 or 5,000 fans of that movie that have actually looked at what we want to do, commented on it, given us constructive criticism. So then we can put our best foot forward.
Amazing.
Fantastic. And if you have that link, I'll make sure to get it from you to get it to Jeremy, and we can put it in the show notes of this show. So
yeah, thank you.
Wherever our audience is, if they're watching
it's
on
been
YouTube.
Such an honor. It's been such an honor coming on, because you guys are like the real deal. And you know, when I first spoke to Jeremy the other week, I was a bit nervous, because you're kind of going into someone else's territory. You know, people claim the thing, you know, this is my favorite movie, and then he's showing me around his man cave, and it's like the movie set, you know, with the amount of memorabilia he's got there. And I was like, you know, but that's the reverence we have for it, and that's certainly how we're going to treat it. I'll give you the link as well, so you have it.
Thanks so much. And I know our listeners are going to love this episode. I'm so excited for them to hear it. Thanks again, Robin, for coming on the show for this special Epic Film Guys bonus episode. Jeremy, before we wrap things up, any final words?
Man is the warmest place to hide.
There it is. And ladies and gentlemen, if this is your first time listening to the show, if this is your 100th time listening to the show, you like what you're hearing, feel free to leave us a review on Spotify or iTunes. You can find us on social media at Epic Film Guys on literally every social media platform. But as always, I'm Justin.
I'm Jeremy.
And we ask you to keep it creepy.